And our next speaker is Ben Heller. And Ben Heller is a GenAI and GenAI leader for Google Cloud AI services. He leads the design, scope, and transformation of AI and generative AI solutions for Google Cloud customers. Ben has partnered with with Raleigh Founded to be a startup GenAI advisor and has been a guest lecturer for the US State Department, North Carolina State University, Duke, SCAMA, and the University of Central Florida. Previously, Ben has served as a senior advisor for Google Cloud startups. And before that, he worked at the SAS Institute, managing the relationships for Citibank and the United Nations. Ben received his master's in applied analytics from Columbia University in New York and is triple certified in Google Cloud and double certified in Microsoft Azure. He graduated with a bachelor's in marketing and specializations in sales from the University of Central Florida. In his presentation, the transformative impact of generative AI on journalism, Ben will highlight AI's role in enhancing content creation, production, and audience engagement while addressing risks like bias and misinformation. Please welcome Ben Heller.
Thank you. Hello, testing. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Can I do this? Does this work? Okay, cool. Thank you for the intro. Thanks for having me here. Happy to spend our Saturdays together. So this is fun. My name is Ben Heller. I work at Google Cloud. I'm a transformation GenAI leader. I think the cool thing of what I get to do, and hopefully I'll share with you all, is much more on the application of how these tools are being used. So I spend my days, weeks, years since GenAI came out speaking with CXOs across all industries, across mostly North America, but some global companies. And I get to hear what are they actually trying to do? And then we go and deploy and figure out, okay, we can actually do this and this is how it works. Or some cases, this is where it doesn't work. So a lot of good insights I hope to share with you. And I'm going to focus mainly, it's really hard to try and share everything about all industries that we've learned. So I'm focusing particularly on journalism and the media industry. So that there's a lot of synergies here. You'll catch on like the biases and pieces of it, but I'll focus more on the media industry. It's also pretty fun. We can all relate to it. There's videos and stuff, you know? So what are we going to cover? I think this group is very familiar with GenAI, so I won't explain GenAI 101. I'll explain a little bit of the ROI, which was a cool paper that just came out with Google Cloud and ROI with the IDC. We'll talk about AI and automation in media and journalism, the new tech that's in journalism, ethical considerations, which we were just speaking about before, and I think that's a very important piece to make this a reality. We got really cool power. But as our great friend Spider-Man always says, with great power comes great responsibility. So that's very true today. And then we'll show a fun demo. It's basically a quick pass through, and then we'll have time for questions. Yeah, cool. So a majority, we had this study come out, right, around where's the AI investments going? And there's actually even an ROI of AI that has come out even more recently. This study basically just showed, I think, kind of like confirmation of what we know, right? Budgets are getting flooded to GenAI. We're seeing stock prices increase because GenAI usage, the more products that are able to use GenAI, like Dexcom or Roblox are good examples. They're able to find ways to create 3D images and be able to monitor glucose monitoring through nutrition facts. All really cool applications, budgets going here, but a lot of people don't really understand the use cases we're trying to solve. A lot of people are thinking this is really cool technology, but we don't actually know what we're mapping to the value. So I always highlight this, and I speak a lot at universities here locally, especially to the AI engineering department, and engineers are really good at solving the problem. but we don't really understand what the value is that we're trying to bring to the company. And so always kind of grounding ourselves in one of these 4 components of value, I would highly recommend we always think about no matter what we're developing. And so we have employee productivity. This is pretty much one of the bigger value cases we're seeing for AI today. Revenue increases, we talked about this. I just highlighted Dexcom as well as Roblox. Operating expenses, and then CSAT, which is customer satisfaction. We're seeing this a lot with like contact centers, right? We're moving away from that very robotic press 1, press 2 type of thing, and it's becoming a very conversational experience, allowing customers to be more self-served, increasing that satisfaction. I would also recommend, there's an ROI study that just came out. I think it said that it was with the IDC. It's obviously biased for Google in this case for GenAI, but it said that I think over a 3-year period, the research they did showed a 727% ROI on GenAI, an 8-month payback period. And I think they even did it per employee of value to you. So I would recommend you take a look if you're interested to understand the mapping the value and ROI. So we're taking video generations to the next level. I think, oh, that's where it is. I was like, this looks different than up there. I think these are really cool demos to show, right? You're seeing how amazing these videos are right now. Can I allow this? Yeah.
This ocean, it's a force, a wild, untamed might. And she commands your awe with every breaking light.
Like, this is just real, incredible video quality that can be created with audio that's generated directly mapped to your mouths. And so if you think about the use case of this, we're having media companies ask about dubbing, right? I like anime, and anime comes out in a ton of different languages. And the aspect of taking one language and trying to dub it to the mouth that is happening, to the voice that is happening, to the tonality that's happening, to the language that's happening, is a very difficult thing to do. And it takes millions of dollars and tons of quality assurance and tons of testers. But this is an incredible way to show that you can generate this incredible video quality as well as having the voice be dubbed over in the language that you're looking for. This is like the physics that are happening right now with AI videos is incredible. Like I couldn't tell you if that was real or not. That's a part of the we'll talk about ethics and piece we'll talk about as well. But the value at the hands of journalists and media companies is, there's no comparison, there's no question. People understand this is a really cool time. Images, also, we get it, right? These are very good at doing a lot of things now. We've made huge leaps in a year. I remember when Imagine came out, I think we're on Imagine 4 now. When Imagine came out and hands were the biggest things. We couldn't like have a tomato, and fingers were always messed up. And we've kind of changed the game. Not we, Google, but we as an entire industry has changed the game with images. So then how do we take these cool technologies, the research that our researchers are doing and PhDs are doing, and apply this to show real value in the world? So this is in the media context. So we have enhanced, and we'll talk a little bit more about each of these, enhancing content product management. So this is how can I stitch together videos? If you haven't used Flow before, this is a really cool technology to basically create videos, create images from videos, stitch them together and create like a much bigger short film. So people can do product management and productation much more easier. I'm working with a couple of news organizations trying to transform the news, which if you're keeping up, news has been very difficult to compete with podcasts. So they're trying to reinvent themselves right now. So how can they be faster, better, create videos without the kind of backlog that they take? And how can they be more nimble like podcasts and YouTube videos are? Unlocking value of content. This is kind of like Google search for your media content, right? These companies have tons of content. They have tons of backlog of great IP, but they can't access it because they don't know where it is. It's stored in someone's locker. It's underground. Who knows where it is, right? You have to know a person to find it. Now you can get search across multimodal aspects, some video, images. Like this is a very great way to provide access to people in the right hands at the right time. And then you're seeing this publicly right now, and this is also making huge stock waves, is personalization. How can you be kind of the Netflix, the YouTube recommender, but even more personalized to making, when you're going to click search on Peacock or whatever the app that you use for your videos, how can you make sure that you're going to keep my eyeballs on screen? And so providing the best personalized recommendation that will be good for me is the best way to do it. And we're seeing this across the board. And then finally, we talked about productivity as one of the best use cases and value props. It's no different in media. You're able to work faster. That's an obvious use case that's going to be, you'll see this kind of across every industry. So talking about the content productation, right? We talked about the archive of modernization. We're talking about basically like you have all of this archival of information. How do you get access to it? How can you create even like, anyone see the Sphere commercial we did, that Google did with, we did it at our Google Cloud Next with Sphere modernizing, what's the movie with the Dorothy and the red slippers? Wizard of Oz, thank you. Yes, I couldn't remember it. So we did this entire reimagination, which was a huge technological feat to go on the Sphere of these like, I don't know, 4,000 panels. And this was an incredible feat to take this old archaic type of movie that probably can play like maybe in an IMAX theater as the biggest one, and put it on an entire Sphere in better quality, which means you have to generate the entirely new scenes that weren't created. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Creative assistance. So we're seeing this with companies that are using these things, right? So how can you have an assistant that can generate new videos for you, that can suggest images? For example, we have news organizations that have kind of like a script, right? You're going to go on CNBC or whatever it is with Kramer, and they have a show. It's called a rundown book, and that rundown book is completely scripted out of what they're going to do. But then they take that rundown book, they need to go to an image creator, and they need to create the right images that go on that screen. And then the image creator needs to work with a map person, and the map person is going to show you this is where, if we have some sort of like festival happening or a parade, they want to put a map. And all this are individual people things happening. So imagine if you can have a rundown book, you upload that was generated or created by humans, and then you click go and you get the images suggested, the video suggested, the map suggested. This is the real value of applying this to our real lives. We talked about live production. Localization, we talked about it a little bit. Translating languages, it's really good at as well. Unlocking the value of content. So this is getting the right video to the right person. So this is like, it's a lot of metadata enrichment. It's a lot of media searching. So this is, again, that Google search on your media content. So how can you get the right video, the right content to the right person? Because your goal is to have eyeballs on screens. That's the ROI here. Personalizing for audience experiences. This is that kind of like age old. When I worked at SAS, we had this product called 360 customer view. It was part of our data management suite. And it's the same buzzword that's still coming around, right? Everyone wants this 360 view of data of their customer. And so if you get that 360 view, what do you do with it? How do you actually make use of that data? People use the words like monetizing your data, right? Like this is the aspect of how you actually monetize. You have all this data, you need a use case. Okay, how do you get funding? How do you get a team to support you? This is how you end up driving to the ROI, is saying, I'm going to take my data, my customers, personalize it, and you can measure direct benefit to users using more of it, clicking on more of your screen, clicking on newer products, upgrading products. Like these are very measurable things that we need to kind of tie ourselves to if we're thinking about getting our projects funded, being executives, reporting to the board, reporting out numbers. And we talked about multimodal. Multimodals, this is a technical audience, right? Multimodal is really cool, and it's just adding more value to the search capabilities. And then enhancing enterprise productivity. This is probably the easiest, I would say, value prop that people lean on. It's also probably the most highly contingent use case that people hinge on, because you look at this and you say, okay, then what, a question I get is like, what would my job be if I'm going to be automating this? Or what should my kid be studying in school if this is now going to be faster or potentially automatic for them? And so there is this kind of dynamic of this very fast shift happening in careers of how do you adapt as quickly as possible to making use of the tools available to make you a more productive agent, which is the word of the year, a more productive employee, a more productive executive. It's not about figuring out how do you replace the job that you're doing, but how do you make your job enhanced to become better? And we're seeing this, I mean, it's happening, right? So it's not a matter of if, it's happening across large organizations, small organizations. It's actually happening more at small organizations because they're so nimble and they don't even have the backlog of legacy systems. They're just able to say, this is the way we're going to start doing it. The challenge is the big companies that say, okay, we want to change. And then you have an entire change management world, which that's always fun. But here's the responsibility piece, right? So the trust and ethical issues are obviously here. I thought this was an interesting study I read. Is it's kind of like the inverse of stats here, right? You have 80% are expecting AI to be used in the newsroom. That's a huge increase of 80% of AI usage, right? But 60% say they're concerned of the implications. So it's like, okay, we have this like contradicting world here, and how are we going to think through it? We can't just say it's happening. We need to prove it to people. So let me show you a quick demo, and then we can get into the ways to mitigate and think about it that I recommend to journalism, people, media, and then finally we go into questions. So imagine you're the owner of Pancake Delights Pancakes. This is kind of how we actually present to our media executives, right? We want to show not the back end pieces, but how cool and personalized and the value that this can show you. And this is public. This is on YouTube. So this is not any sort of a secret sauce here. So in this case, you upload your information, right? You're uploading multiple different types of data, upload different types of format. This is cool. Train your model. Then you say, in this case, you're a marketing team, right? You want to create taglines with short descriptions. This is the product. You're saying, here's my target customer segment. I don't know. I can't remember which segment we use. I think we're saying it's like parents in a holiday season, right? So quite specific. So they give me that. That's great. Then I say, you know what? Change this. I also want a summer campaign. And in this case, I'm more specific. So I have keto and paleo diets. And maybe put it on the beach. So now we have two separate campaigns and seconds across the images, the taglines. You can kind of get the picture on how much value the marketing executives see when they start to, okay, I'm realizing what's happening here. Then you have in-store companies, right? You have in-person stores. And so you want to print this on a huge wall this size. You need to upscale the image. No problem, upscale all your images. You now have ability to print this upscaled image in seconds. And now we talk about localization. Imagine you're a global company and you want other people to be able to speak their own language and understand your own taglines, and you don't want to hire basically all the agencies that you need to hire to help you translate appropriately to all the regions you want to reach. No problem. Click translate. We now have 8 campaigns in a matter of 30 seconds across 8 different images and products and way different settings. Like, this is very powerful. So the idea of personalization and taking advantage, we talked about 360 data and the monetization of data. This is like the culmination of seeing this in action, which is very much a reality. Quickly touching on the risks. I think it's very important to call this out, right? This is the responsibility piece that we all in this room are responsible for, whether we talk about it, we do it, or we even kind of code it and create it ourselves. Unreliable outputs. We talked about hallucinations. We talked about explainability. This is very important to build trust, right? No one wants the model to lie to them. And a lot of times people aren't even validating these things. So people are over trusting this. So it's important that you, as the creator of these tools, are taking an extra step to create this reliable outputs. Bias and harm in journalism, this is huge, right? We have this whole like, don't trust the media kind of wave happening right now. So how do you ensure that your bias, the harm, the ethics considerations that you're providing of your content are taken into account? You're being very thoughtful about it. You're proving it that you're being thoughtful about it. That's a big piece of it. Security and confidentiality. People don't seem to understand this still, right? Just think of like our normal ChatGPT or Gemini public version of the world that's free. If it's free, you probably shouldn't put your customer information on it. There's a difference between free and the paid stuff. And there's a lot of security SLAs that are provided for it. I think more people are understanding this, but I'll always say this every time I do this. Liability and compliance. There's a lot of discussions around copyright IP. There's lawsuits happening at this stage. So you need to be very careful on the type of outputs you're providing, what information you're able to get. We're seeing like a Reddit deal happening where you're able to download or acquire information to use for training data. And then lastly, we talked about job impacts. It's just good to be aware of. Because you want to, again, not be impacted in a negative way, be impacted in a positive way, right? It makes you better. So in summary, this is my journalism guide of the AI era. The key of any solution you come out with, which actually I think is pretty transferable to any of the industries we work in, you want to verify the information you're providing. You want to verify the information you're getting. So if you're using it to get the research, you're not the model builder, you're the model consumer. Verify the information, don't just trust it. Transparency is super key. So providing links, sources, documentation. How did you do this? Where's information from? How can I help me verify to build trust? Human oversight. We talked a whole lot about human in the loop. So human oversight is very key, right? Don't automate incredibly important and risky processes, right? Like don't have a doctor use a bot that automatically prescribes drugs, but it's okay to have a robot or an agent completely automatically plan my trip to Italy, right? Like be considerate about the ethical implications, which goes into ethical guidelines, right? This is, we're in a weird state that is, can the AI do what we want it to do versus should the AI do what we want it to do? And this answer and question depends on literally every company by company in the same industry. You put that same company, even globally, right? I've spoken with a North American group and then a European group, and they had different like risk tolerances of what they considered ethically viable or not. So this is an incredibly nuanced topic that it's just important to discuss and be aware of. And lastly, this is moving so freaking fast, right? We are all very smart, but we are all very dumb in the same way, right? It is so hard to keep up with all of these things happening. I get notices from my friends and colleagues about Google updates to products before I even know that the updates are coming because there's just too much to keep up with. So just be humble, be aware that you're not going to know every answer. It's good to continue learning and ask questions. So with that, I'll segue to being able to answer questions.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions from the audience?
Thanks, Ben, for the great talk. I'm Ramtis Zan from USC. I'm a professor there. We had a roundtable yesterday, and a lot of things came up, and I want to run it by you. Considering the barrier of entry for this kind of work and the compute costs, are you worried that startups that work on downstream tasks, especially if they are working on something that needs privacy, for example, let's say we're putting a social robot in front of the kids, that they have to be careful about the privacy, for example. And the fact that these startups cannot spend that much money to train their own models, and right now they depend on cloud services, Google's of the world, AWS. Do you think that barrier of entry is going to cause a natural monopoly, and the startups cannot like be very active in this domain?
So I think the question is more of like, because this is requiring more compute to do whatever we want it to do, and compute for these more complex tasks are more expensive, right? You need GPUs, TPUs. Does that provide a barrier to entry to startups versus companies that have money to spend to do the type of training that you need to do?
Would that cause any monopoly and not letting startups grow?
So I actually think this is like the inverse. I think startups are the most like nimble and innovative groups that change the game, right? So one, I think compute is kind of this like cost game that's actually just going lower and lower. So people are getting compute faster. Specifically, startups, the really savvy ones, can take advantage of free compute from all the cloud providers, try and incentivize them to come on. Like I think Google gives $250,000 of compute for AI startups that that can do like their startup program. I think Amazon has a similar one, Azure has a similar one, IBM, right? So there's the ability, I would say, to actually, if there is that compute cost moat, to overcome that pretty quickly and prove out your use case using these free credits available. So I actually think the cost of using cloud is probably the easiest thing to overcome. I think the harder thing is making sure that there was actually a quote from one of the execs at Anthropic, and they said, if your product, your startup, could be, if you imagine the LLMs today, and if we just enhanced a feature of an LLM, and your startup would be eliminated because of that enhancement, you probably shouldn't be making that startup because it's moving so quickly. So I think it's more important to think about the use case and value than ever, because we're seeing a lot of these like wrapper companies come out. And I think those wrapper companies are the ones that aren't building a big enough moat. But compute costs I don't see as the biggest issue because of how much value there is that people are incentivizing.
Question. So that's assuming that Google built the trust that the data that startups are sharing with Google is not going to be used against them, right? And do you think companies like AWS and Amazon and Google's of the board can build that trust that, okay, there's somehow this privacy, security is not a concern. At the scale, we can just manage it better. But how about the privacy of the data they're sharing? It's very important for startups, right?
Yeah, so this is a great point. And people don't, this is why I differentiate between enterprise and consumer, right? So Google has made a huge push to differentiate between Google Search and Google Cloud. There's an entire privacy page that on Google Cloud that says your data is your data. Google doesn't want it. So even to the point when Gemini came out, people were very concerned that am I prompts chaining Gemini's model? And no, on the enterprise version, you're paying for your privacy. There's called a base frozen model, and then your adapter layer model. So there's a misnomer because of the type of like coverage for people that are using, or like the ChatGPT thing that happened, right? Where you can Google search and see your ChatGPT conversations, is because people are using the free versions expecting more privacy than what you actually get. The commercial versions that we have this base layer, which no one touches, you're just getting the value. And then you have this adapter layer that you can tune and change the temperatures and top K, top B. That is never seen outside. It's the same way firewalls work in data. And so there is a strict contingency for data privacy. And I think Azure and AWS and other clouds kind of follow the same logic, or else they wouldn't have the banking, the governments of the world putting their data on their platform where they're saying, no, we want you. They don't want these companies to have it. So and the companies just take the stance, we don't want it either. We keep it there. So I think it's actually more private and more secure than an on-prem situation as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Hey, Ben,
Yeah.
you have give a great talk.
Thank you.
So I particularly like your last slide, verify, and verify. So I have a question, because in this AI age, there's so many beautiful, looks great fake data outside, information. So I want to know, how did your team really handle the verification process?
Yeah. So I guess I'll ask a follow-up. So verifying as like a user or verifying as a developer? Like if am I creating a model in your question and providing it to users?
From developer point of view, when you create any application for the user sometimes very hard to, they try to believe or trust your software. From developer point of view, how you create a way help you to verify the information or the data you push to the user?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the way that we talk about it and it's happening in real time is a couple of ways. One, from like an image, I think you'll see, or in some of my images you'll see that are generated by, I use Imagine. They have an AI moniker on the bottom. It's a watermark, right? And it's also, there's this unique watermark technology that's not seen that Google's created that allows anyone to say that this is an AI generated piece. And this comes to the whole art piece of it, right? So it depends on the company also that's going to be trustworthy. So this is a company building trust.
Yeah. I mean, AI generated image is fine, but I think the fake information, a fake, message. So how you verify? If you try to verify by human beings, still very costly, not efficient. So,
well, if you're asking for like, give me some creative ideas, right? Give me some creative ideas for a presentation. How do you verify, like, what does correct mean in that case?
Well, we are making some tests to create the multi-agent, use the different model to verify, validate each other.
That's okay, right? So I work a lot with companies. We did a project with the Olympics a couple of years ago with NBC, right? And they had a chatbot, and this was pretty early. It was the first externalized global chatbot in production ever, from using generative AI. And we were the first ones to do a multi-agent system that had, let me check the cache. So I ask a question, right? When Simone Biles, whatever it is, right? What's happening? What are the medal counts? And so that question comes in, and then you have this kind of like flow, a logic flow that we go through. And the logic flow kind of depends on every customer. And we spend a lot of time in this design piece of it. Because in this case, the logic flow is, what questions are part of my FAQs? So what do I not need to generate first? They already have some basic questions that I already have stored. What questions can be looked up on a database? So like I have the schedule of the entire Olympics, and I have the schedule and I also have the data of the medal count. So I don't need to generate this information. I just need to do a lookup. And then you have the questions that you don't want to answer. Like if someone says, what's NBC's political affiliation? For an Olympic chatbot, you don't want to answer that for a chatbot. So there's a lot to your question of like, how do you design, what's the right thing for your customer or your company to evaluate, say that's quality and good. So yeah. LLM as a judge is a great way to do it. Yeah, of course.
Ben, for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.